We're live. Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy break to all of you that are officially on your break throughout this week into next week. I know I have several friends who were bragging to me that they were enjoying their first day off, didn't need their alarms. So just wanted to give a shout out to any of you that are starting to spend some time with family and friends this week or doing whatever that you need to do. For those of you who may have not joined in for one of these special ThriveinEDU live episodes, we are talking about my newest book, Things I Wish. There is a ... new that came out in December, and getting to know some of the contributors that shared something that they wish somebody else knew. Doesn't matter who it is that they wish they knew when they started teaching, administrators, students, parents, anybody. Going to give a quick shout out here. Hey, thanks for joining us each week from Morocco. That is absolutely awesome. Love to see that. For anybody who doesn't know, my name is Rachelle. I love education, I love learning, and I love connecting. And I'm so thankful to have these two amazing guests and friends with me here tonight. So without any more about me, I'm going to toss it over to Toutoule to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and any other fun fact that you would like to share.
Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Toutoule Ntoya. I am here in the Southern California area, swooning over Justin taking off his sweatshirt. Woohoo! I'm an education consultant, science teacher, administrator, coach, I did all kind of stuff in this education space, working on maker spaces now and STEAM integration. And when Rachelle reached out about this topic, we just kept going back and forth. And I'm glad I was able to contribute something of worthwhile to her
Yeah.
book. So
Yeah.
thank you for
And
having me.
yeah, thank you. And it reminds me of the first book, I think, whenever you wrote two stories in that. Actually, it might have been the third book about the teaching in the closet was one of them. And not going to spoil because I want people to actually read the book, but we went about it in a similar fashion, which we can talk about to how you contributed to this one. So always glad to have you. And next, we have Justin. Justin, let us know a little bit about you, what you do, where you're from, and hey, maybe a fun fact.
All right, first, thank you for having me. Second,
Yes.
Toutoule, you are one handsome man. Very excited to be on with you. Look at you right there. Oh, man, the man's got it. He's got it all. So I am a health and phys ed teacher in Central New Jersey. What else? I glue drawers back together that my kids destroy. So I am an absolute monster with Gorilla Glue. Don't let me don't let me around your stuff. Glue it all together. What else? I think that's about it. I like long walks on the beach, like old man basketball. I'm a big fan of puns. I like bad jokes, and I think that's about all for me. So just excited to be here with y'all.
Well, that is quite a lot. And I think I do recall you saying that you liked long walks on beaches at some point. And I don't know if it was in something like this before, or that one time that I had both of you on and we had like the wheel and we were spinning the questions and all of that for the introduction. So we would love to know where anybody who is joining us is joining from. And then at any point, if you have questions for me, for Justin, for Toutoule, to drop those into the comments. We would love to learn from you. And we will also put you kind of on the spot to share something that you wish that somebody else knew. So before I put them on the spot again, a little bit about the book. It has, including myself, 50 educator stories from around the world. And when I started to write it, I remember myself, and I think we can all relate to, gee, I wish I knew that when I started teaching, or if only I had known that at the start of this school year. I wish I knew that before teaching in a pandemic. And the list went on and on. Or even things not about ourselves. Like I wish administrators knew. I wish parents knew. I wish the students knew. I had this long list of things. So I reached out onto Twitter and to some of my network and said, hey, anybody interested in sharing? Like, how would you fill this in? ... And hey, thanks for joining us. Great to have you. How would you fill in the ... Because initially it was going to be just a focus on like myself or as a first year teacher, a veteran teacher. But then I just left it as an open-ended response. And I got so many stories that made me really think about, wow, I really wish I knew that when I started teaching, not just at the beginning of my career, but the beginning of the school year. And it became a big project that I'm absolutely proud of and thankful for all the people who shared their stories. So it is important to share your story. And with that, that is the first question. So why should we share our stories? And I won't pick on you specifically, Justin or Toutoule, to go first, either one of you. But like, let's say you had a challenging day in class, or you're an administrator and you have all these things going on and you just keep it to yourself. Like, is that good? Is that bad? Or should we be sharing what we're doing and experiencing? And if so, why?
You go first, Toutoule.
Why, thank you, sir. You're such a gentleman. I'm going to tell my kids to grow up and be like Justin
Thank you.
as
Thank
their
you.
role model. Yeah, why stories are important. I think stories are important. Representation is important. And I talk to so many educators who feel like they don't have anything to share, that they don't have a story to tell, that their story doesn't matter, what's happening in their classroom doesn't matter. But I think all of us have something to share. And I think also we don't realize that everything that we do, like the impact we have on our students every day that we're in those classrooms, like we don't realize that. And I think these stories help unify us and connect us. So you don't feel like you're out in the wilderness by yourself, but everyone's going through the same exact thing you're going through. What you got, Justin?
Bow, bow. Look at you with your alerts on. What a rookie over here. I'll tell you what. Bow, bow. All right. So first, stories humanize us. That's the number one, the most powerful part of your story is it humanizes you with your students, you with your coworkers, you with the community, and everyone has a story, and everyone's story is different. So I feel like no matter who you are, you should document your story. You should have an understanding of who you are and try to convey that to somebody else. Because again, like Toutoule was talking about, representation matters. It's not just showing up, but it's the interaction, right? It's the learning. Like once I learned Toutoule's story, now he becomes more of a full human being, which is amazing. And that's for everyone out there. I'm listening to a book now on Audible that talked about like your 20% of people who are ahead of the curve, right? They're not listening to stories. The bottom, they're not really listening to stories. But those middle people, if you're looking to change minds, that middle 60%, that's one of the number one ways that we could change people's minds and get them to understand our viewpoint on things is through stories, not facts, not logic. Like we always say, well, if I give you this fact, that's going to convince you that my argument is right. But when we tell the stories and it humanizes, that's actually shown as one way that people really start to change their view. So those are a couple of reasons why stories are so important.
But I think also, if you think of the social nature of learning and how we learn as people, that story also helps you in a learning capacity as an adult learner, right? So, like, especially for first year teachers and beginning teachers in the field, things that you're going through and trying to get anecdotes and how did you deal with this and how did you deal with that, and these stories help you make more meaning of what's happening in your own classrooms and to be able to make those connections. So not only does it humanize the person who you're listening to, but it also makes that connection and also facilitates your own learning that moves you forward. And I just remember being a new teacher, how every day was like brand new, and how much you soak in, how much information you soak in those first 3 years. And I think those stories just help facilitate not only the humanization process, but then it's just also the learning and all the things you have to overcome as a beginning first year, second year, third year teacher.
And then some.
Talk about belonging, right? Like when you tell your story and then somebody else goes, yo, that's happening to me too. Like no matter what position you're in, suddenly you're like,
yes,
okay, I'm not alone in this feeling. And then once you're not alone, suddenly it's a little easier to bear. And then, maybe you can go to the next step of, okay, how did you solve whatever it was that's going on? So I think stories help connect us.
For sure.
Yeah. And I love what both of you say. And you never know, right? Because you might think, well, this is only happening to me. Or the other piece of it is the vulnerability piece, because it's owning up or admitting that like you are struggling, there is this challenge or something that you're dealing with, and letting somebody in to know that you're having that experience can be very uncomfortable. And I know for me, I didn't do that for years. I was like, nope, I'm not telling anybody. I'm going to work this out on my own. I'm going to find the answer somewhere else because other people will know I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm struggling, and how's that going to look? Or how is that going to look? Until a couple of years ago, when I started to become a little bit more open, a little bit more connected, like with both of you, and then through EduMatch, actually just blossomed a lot of connections. And that's what started my kind of confidence in sharing stories, was working and writing in the Snapshot in Education books with Dr. Sarah Thomas, and connecting and reading those stories. And then you have those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, like exactly. And it might not be identical, but it might be just enough that you might have been feeling like, I can't do this. Like, this job is too hard. There's too much. I don't know how to get through. And then you read that story and it makes a difference. And there was, I'll say a colleague, it's not necessarily a colleague in my school, but I'll say a colleague that came to me one day and spoke to me and said, I don't think this teaching is for me. And I can't do it. I'm too different. I'm too weird. I said, well, first of all, everybody's weird. Like, we've all got something going on. We all have something unique. We all struggle. And I said, do you like teaching? Do you love teaching? What do you like about it? Just try to get some questions going. And then just shared my story, how, I struggle with the same thing too, years ago. And I had days where I dreaded going to school, and I couldn't wait to leave school at the end of the day because I was afraid. I was nervous about, like, how am I going to get through this? But that made a huge difference for this person. And it was just me one-on-one. But for the stories in this book, or for stories that you share, whether it's in any other space, in your networks, you never know how it's going to impact somebody else. And it just might be that one thing that they need to hear that's going to keep them going on and keep pushing through, and inspire them to share that with somebody else. So before I continue with that, I got to say, give a shout out to Facebook user. Would love to know who you are. Justin, my man, for that one. And they also say it's all theory unless we bring it to life through our stories, which is so true. And also our friend from Morocco, they display your character and your passion and easier to remember, which is great. And Louis, thank you. Safety in numbers. Yeah, the power of being connected. Jay Billy. All right. I always try to guess who Facebook user is. So thanks for sharing. Love to hear from you. What are your questions that you have? So that's the first question. Justin, Toutoule, did you have anything else to add on the importance of our stories?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I ask my kids this, and this is one of the Socratic methods we use in my class, where we argue, do you really know someone if you don't understand their identities? And really what I'm getting at is, if you don't know people's stories, because our identity makes us who we are and impacts how we see the world and how the world sees us. If you don't know that and have never had those conversations, do you truly know the person? And no matter what role you're in, isn't that what we want to get to? So if you're a teacher, don't you want to form relationships with your kids? Isn't that what we talked about? So again, opening up with those stories, your colleagues, you see them every day and you go the same day. How you doing? Good. All right. How are you? I'm all right. All right, and then you just keep it moving. Yet when you sit time and you actually do it, whether in faculty meetings or whatever, and you have time to do the stories, now, again, you humanize them and you see them in a whole nother light. And then when you get to the other stuff, they're more approachable. Hey, can we do this? Can we do that? What are you doing? It just really creates these connections that's on a deeper level that we want, no matter where we're at and what our role is.
Yeah. Toutoule?
Yeah, I was just thinking about a student of mine when I first started teaching, and he just drove me crazy. He drove me crazy every day. He was in detention one day at school, and he started telling me these stories about his mom, what they do on the weekends, and how they do this, and how he helped his mom do that. And I'm like, you do all that with your mom? He was like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I used to do with my mom. We used to go on the weekends and she'd take me to the store and blah, blah, and that like connected us. And after that day, I looked at him totally different. Like, we weren't like, he was never a pain anymore. And he came through, and he was still kind of whatever, but we had an understanding. But because we're able to share that story, and it was out of nowhere. So I think, like Justin was saying, that stories really unify us and helps us learn about one another. And we've got too many silos happening around this world of ours, and we need to connect with one another around stories. And we can all just tell stories. I think all the differences, go away.
They also level out power. Like in that, you were no longer the teacher, he was no longer the student. He was the human who helps his mom. You were the human who used to help your mom and go out and together. So I think that's the other part of stories. The power differential that we bring is lessened sometimes.
It's a great point.
And you never know what that piece is going to be that's going to form that connection for those relationships that are so important, because that is something that I struggled with for years. It was like, oh, a certain student trying to make that connection no matter what I would try. It's like, and I know Toutoule, how many times, like even in Voxer, I would say like, kids, like student engagement, we'd have these conversations and try to brainstorm ideas. And I'm like, what does it take? And sometimes it's just the smallest little thing, that one little story that makes a huge difference. Or it's one observation that leads to a quick conversation like, oh yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid. And they look at you like, what? You used to do that? And then it starts to build this relationship, which, we know those are so essential in our roles as educators and to helping our students learn to build the relationships with their peers as well. So great. Oh, there we go. Dr. Sarah. Sarah, hey, love when you
Sarah was good.
We love us some Sarah.
We do. And thanks to Sarah, all of this is possible. Oh my gosh, you can do some singing for Sarah. I'll leave y'all to that, unless it's karaoke. But then I'm not even. Don't
get it started. Listen, this is about to get off the rails real quick.
No, you don't want that.
You know how we do.
I do. I shall remove you from the stream by accident. You never know. Great to have you, Dr. Sarah. And so the next question I have for you and for everybody else is, if we could talk about what you both shared in this book. And for anybody, if you had this prompt, if you were writing something for this book, how would you fill in that ellipses, the ... What is something that you wish that others knew? How would you complete that to write your own? And I don't know, Justin or Toutoule, if you want to share what you contribute to this, because you kind of had like there were three parts. There was like the Justin piece, and there was the Toutoule piece, and there was the Justin and the Toutoule, all done within our little Voxer group, and we kind of try type it all and put it all together. But whatever you want to share, we would love to hear. And for those of you watching too, we'd love to know in the comments as well.
Sure. First of all, I am so much more brilliant than I recognize, because I read the book and I'm like, I said that. Oh, that's brilliant. I totally forgot that. I was looking at so we were ripping off each other. I mean, we were in there just ripping them. Like I would say something, he would say, we would just keep going back and forth because, over 17 years, we have accumulated some knowledge, I would say. And in general, it's just, there are some things like you said, you just wish other people knew. Like the number one thing that always pops in my mind when this question comes, there's one thing you need to know entering a school district, that the secretaries and the custodians run that joint. Mm-hmm. The administration has the power. They do the grand stuff. These secretaries and the custodians do the day-to-day work. They do the grind. They know everything. Mm-hmm. They can make your life fantastic. They can remove obstacles. They can do all that. Or they can make your life garbage. Treat them well. Buy them Christmas gifts. Show them your appreciation. Say hello. Look them in the eyes. Find out if they have kids. Ask their story. Do all those things. Establish relationships with those people, because they're amazing. They're hardworking. They're brilliant. And they are going to make your life easier in the school district. I cannot overstate that enough. Toutoule, what you got?
So I don't know if this made the cutting. Maybe it fell on the editor's floor there, and then make the final cut. But there's this thing that I always wish that I had focused on relationships more than I did curriculum. When I first started, everything was about test scores, no child left behind, advanced and proficient. That's where that's where we want all of our kids to be. Content. That's all we focused on. Everything was about science. I was like, yo, kids are great, but I need them to learn the science and the math. That's it. Right. So that was my mentality. And, I'm a personal guy, so I was always able to kind of lean on that a little bit. But I wish I had started with the personal, with the stories, with the relationships, and just being able to cultivate that. And I know a lot of administrators and superintendents would hate for me to say this, but like someone said before, I think it was Luis, curriculum is nothing if you don't get the kids to engage. So having those personal relationships is so important. And I really downplayed how important that was because I was always trying to, you know, get the kids to achieve, get the high test scores, get them to pass the course, and blah 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 blah. And I bet at the end of the day, the kids, I've got so many kids who are on Facebook that we talk about now. And if I ask them, hey,
Mhm.
what did you remember about my chemistry class? They'd be like, oh, nothing. I remember that time you came in and we did karaoke. Oh, that was so fun, right? Like those are
Uh-huh.
the things that they really remember, things that they take with them. And you just hope that you can impact them in some kind of way. But that relationship piece is really where it's at.
Oh, and I have to interrupt and say, share some of these comments, but Toutoule, yours, those did, because it was, I wish teachers knew that the content is not as important as you think it is. How much of an impact our relationships have on students, not the content, but the relationships. And then what was the other one? Well, those were the first two. So they definitely made it. So how about you, Justin?
All right. So other things I wrote in there specifically. First, you're more than your evaluation number. That's what I thought. And administration doesn't know more about your content area than you do. So again, teaching is our identity, right? It's not what we do, it's what we are. So anytime evaluations come in, these teachers are wiling out about their scores and all that. And I'm like, yo, that's one snapshot, right? That administrator who doesn't probably know your content as well as you do is giving you. So take that for what it is. And I'm always going to strive to do more and improve myself more than any evaluation ever is going to do. So I understand the Davis system, they need to do what they do, but I'm also not going to find my value in their score. And I think too often we get wrapped up in, oh, I'm the Danish, I got a 3, whatever. My philosophy, keep me off that personal improvement plan, right? That's all. And do you think I'm doing a good job, supervisor? That's literally what I want. Don't give me extra work to do. And then tell me honestly, like, how am I doing? What do I need to improve? The number and all that is less significant than anything else.
Yeah, and sorry, Toutoule, the thing about that I loved about this, and Justin, you said, like, I wrote that, I read this, I wrote that, like, that it was a conversation in Voxer, and I give this advice all the time. It's important to obviously reflect, and we don't always have time to do that. And it's important to connect. And so when you have a space like Voxer where you can have a larger group or a small group, I mean, EduMatch is a great community that Dr. Sarah Thomas has formed, and it's on Voxer. But even having these small spaces where you can go back and forth with one person, with, like I have with Justin and Toutoule, and bounce ideas off of. But whenever it was to this, they went back and forth and just listed these things, and it covered everybody, administrators and the custodians and students and parents. And then they had a long section together. And then I kind of transcribed it and put it into the book and try to put it in a good order. But I really appreciate everything that they offered. So Toutoule, back to you, because I did kind of cut you off there.
Oh no, it's all good. I was just I just wanted to piggyback off of what Justin was saying. I think a lot of educators, I think it's in our nature, and through our training, we're always there's this control thing that you have to have in your classroom to be a good teacher. You got to be able to control things in your classroom, right? Where
Right.
how kids move, the flow of information, who does what, who right. There's this control thing, and we always want to be at our best. And I think that evaluation piece is a part of it. Like we always want to be like you know, if there's a 5 on the scale, you want to be a 5. You're a 4. You're not sleeping at night. Well, how do I get to a 5? But if we can really, just do it with justice, that keep it simple. Just keep me off the need to improve list. Let me go on and do my business. I'm gonna learn, especially those of us who are driven, who are really into the craft and looking to get better. I think that evaluation is just a snapshot, but we're always going to be able to get better. And I guess, and maybe it's easier after you've done it for a while that you know what these valuations kind of mean, what they stand for. But
Right.
it's really hard as a newer teacher to take the evaluation with a grain of salt because you're like, yo, this is going to be, permanent, and not understanding that, yo, this is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. This is a marathon. You're always going to be a better educator, and you're always going to learn, and you're not going to be the same 2 years from now, and even next year, no matter how old you are in the game, you're going to be even better. So what does that mean for your evaluation? It's just a snapshot.
Yeah. And one thing that you said to Tool in your own section, that the last one of your first grouping was, I wish students knew that teachers are way cooler than you can ever imagine.
What?
I
Justin,
agree. I agree.
man, can you imagine if our kids knew how cool the both of us were, like,
Then-
together? Oh,
I'm pretty sure they know. I'm pretty sure they know.
Mm.
And Justin, you, the one too, I wish teachers knew that you should give students the benefit of the doubt every single time they ask for it. And just knowing, I mean, obviously you have to know, like, get to know the students. And is this something that, like, it's real, or are they making this up? I mean, as with anybody, right? And that comes from building the relationships. And I like to tell my students, like, there's something you're going through, you need some extra time, whatever the issue is, like, come and talk to me. Like, be honest. Like, just don't put a bunch of fluff. Just actually share what it is, because you're going to come across situations throughout the rest of your life where you're going to have to share something that either you're struggling with, that you can't do, you need help with, and you have to be able to communicate that to somebody and build that trust, because that trust is essential and those relationships are essential. So, so much great advice. And we did have another Facebook user join in. So I don't know who you are, but they said, some wonderful people here love hearing you all speak. So we would love to know which Facebook user you are. And the only other thing that I will ask anybody who's joining in and our guests, because it is almost the middle of April and we are winding down the school year, some sooner than others, but it's also a time where a lot of teachers, soon to be teachers, are finishing up their education and preparation to go into the classrooms. And so what advice do you, either of you, or anybody who is watching, have for somebody who is a new teacher, whether it's totally brand new to a school, or they're pre-service, they're getting ready to go into the classroom, maybe as like a student teacher kind of experience? Any tips?
Justin, I give me a perspective on this. My first 2 years of teaching, I said to myself, there is no way no one could have prepared me for this, right? Like, unless, even if you were a student teacher and you had a master teacher or whatever in the classroom with you, like, having your own classroom, I don't know what experience could prepare you for that, because of everything that's thrown at you, all the decisions you have to make, food, having to eat and keep your energy up, lunch, breaks, like, everything that goes into teaching. There's no way. And I just get your perspective. What are some things that could have prepared you for all of this?
Nothing. College is a waste. Go for a year and then go start sitting in the classroom and teaching. You literally are only going to get better by teaching. It's like everything else. Like, I could watch people play basketball. I'm not going to get better by watching people play. I mean, there is so much into it. We cannot say everything, and every situation is different. But you have to go in understanding you're not perfect. You're going to have to look outside yourself. I think that's really hard for a lot of us, because when we're 22, we don't know anything about the world yet. So how do we look outside of ourselves? Most of us probably married, you don't have kids. Like, it's just a lot. So you go in thinking you know a lot when you don't. That would be the first thing. Second, everybody struggles. Every single person in your school is struggling in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in the classroom, at home, anywhere. Life is a struggle. So they may look like they have it together. Every single person's barely getting through life. That we put on the facade when we go to work, and the kids put their best version of themselves just like we do. Everybody's struggling. So just understand, when you're struggling, you are struggling with every other person. And that's where going back to those humanizing stories and saying, hey, I'm struggling, having your mentor. I also saw somebody talk about having a mentor that was younger than you. That is brilliant, right? To have that younger person who could kind of tell you, like, hey, this is what this means and this is what's going on. And you could kind of figure it out, because you're out of touch. Literally 5 years out of high school, you're out of touch. You have no idea what they're doing anymore, unless you have like a younger sibling. But
Yeah, Justin, I just want to kind of reiterate that mentor conversation. And big shout out to my man Brian.
Yeah.
That mentor conversation, because I had a mentor earlier on. She was an assistant principal, and she literally saved me, because I was just floundering. Principal they kind of threw me out there, and she just sat me down. She'd meet with me. We would talk, She brought in a camera to help us look at the lesson and see what's like. She just did all of that, and we'd sit down, and I'd have a hard time. So, I think having that mentor person on your campus who you can relate to, I think if there's anything that can tell new teachers is to find that mentor on your campus who can help you navigate some of the things, because that saved my hide the first 3 years.
Yeah, find good people. So
Mhm.
ask your principal, who's a good person? I don't care what they teach. It doesn't have to be your subject area, but
Right.
find good people, because not all teachers are good people. So you want to find the good ones that are going to make themselves available to you and not try to throw you under the bus or sabotage you.
Oh my gosh. And that's so true too. I had written about mentoring in a blog. I think I'd written about it. I think it might have been actually a chapter in one of the EduMatch snapshot books too, but just the idea that most times when we come into a school as a new teacher, a mentor is assigned to us as part of a program that they have in place. And then I realized that there are so many times that we either have mentors or we are mentors to somebody else, and we don't realize it because it hasn't been like, let's sit down, I'm your mentor and we're going to talk. It just formed. And it can be, older teachers that have been, and I say older, veteran teachers have been around for a while, can be mentored by the younger, because we all have something to learn from one another. And that is super important. So I thank both of you, and for everybody who has joined in today. This has been a fantastic conversation about the book. Grab your copy, Things I Wish, ... new. I dropped the links of where you can get it. And the bit.ly is Things I Wish EDU. But
Can we give Rachelle a shout out real quick? Because do you see how she's navigating the graphics that come up? She's bringing the questions over. Do you know how much is going on right now?
She's the hardest working woman in the bro. Let me tell you something. When I think I'm working too hard, I'm like, nope, I gotta catch Rachelle. She's out
I feel
here
like I'm on ABC. I feel like we're something special right now, Doc.
for sure, man.
You're too much. I'm learning. It's a learning work in progress. So, but thank both of you for joining in. For everybody else that joined us in now live and also checks out the recording later, we'd love to connect with you on Twitter, anywhere else. And if you have stories to share, by all means, share them with us. So we will catch you next time. Actually, 2 more weeks. We'll have some more guest contributors on. Until then, enjoy your week, share your stories, and keep on connecting.
Love you.